There is one thing you do every day that could end unemployment. This one thing you do, we all do every day, could essentially flip a switch on innovations that will create millions of jobs. This one thing you do, you probably did it a few times already today. I bet you did it in this theater already. This one thing you do could secure your own job and your own ability to put food on the table. Intrigued? I see a lot of eyebrows raised. Good. Well, before I get to this one thing, I'd first like to tell you a quick story. It's my story of how I made this discovery, how I ended up here, and along the way, I will share with you how this impacts your life and your ability to work and put food on the table. And then we'll end up with this one thing that you do every day and how it can change the world. Sound like a plan? All right. Well, I am an entrepreneur that was never supposed to be an entrepreneur. In my Italian family, girls are raised to do two things: make babies and really good spaghetti gravy. While I was waiting for the babies, I'd mastered the gravy about 2 decades earlier when my grandmother insisted on it. But I was waiting on the babies and working in an industry that I absolutely loved. But it was loaded with problems. And I was frustrated with these problems, so frustrated that I started to come up with ideas on how I could fix the industry. And then that bled into these ideas became an obsession. I was obsessed with figuring out if I could make these ideas work. So, seeing that I had no choice, I quit my job. I knew nothing about running a business. I had no money. And I hear myself saying this now, and I realize how completely insane it was. But I gave it a shot. I worked 7 days a week. I watched a lot of TED Talks, surrounded myself with really smart people. And before I knew it, we had Fortune 200 clients, and my model, my ideas were proven. We had a technology, a real live technology that was disrupting a $20 billion space. It worked. We did it. And we were number 8 on the Inc. 500 list, which means we were the 8th fastest growing company in the country. We were the number 1 woman-led company in the country. The company was profitable. Life was good. I was living a life that I never imagined possible for myself. And I was running a company that was on its way to being the standard for a very big industry. And then it came time to raise venture capital money. And I was disappointed and surprised that there weren't that many choices out there. So I took the first term sheet that came across my desk. Big mistake, huge. What I didn't know then, and what I now tell every single entrepreneur I meet, is spend more time choosing your venture capitalist than you do choosing your spouse. Because there's no divorcing a bad VC. The VC I chose just simply wasn't the right fit for my business. And the situation with them grew worse every year. And eventually, they took controlling ownership of my company. And I saw no choice but to resign. Yep. I walked away from my baby, and it broke my heart in two. But my story isn't unique. There is a lack of venture capital out there, especially if you're in the middle of the country where I'm from. And as a woman, I'm even less likely to find an investor. Did you know that only 4% of venture capital goes to woman-owned businesses? It's not good. Venture capital and private equity are responsible for some of the greatest innovations we've ever known. But many experts do believe that the venture capital model is broken. This broken model and general lack of capital is stifling entrepreneurship and innovation. And here's where it starts to get important to you and your livelihood and your ability to put food on the table. Not only do entrepreneurs create new jobs, but they create innovations that secure existing jobs. Jobs like yours. For example, my little company employed only 42 people, but my innovative model secured the jobs of 15,367 Americans in our supply chain. These were jobs that the industry was eliminating by sourcing direct to China, but my model put an end to that by making the domestic supplier relevant. Here's another example. Our Fortune 500 clients, they saved millions thanks to us. One client documented that they saved $31 million. Now the Fortune 500 employ like 27 million people. Did our innovation save some of those jobs? Even if it's just a few, I like to think so. But multiply my business by the thousands of others out there and imagine the jobs that don't get created. Or imagine the jobs that are in jeopardy because some entrepreneurs didn't get the funding they needed to create the breakthroughs that we all need to stay in business, to stay competitive, and to stay employed. This is why entrepreneurs getting funding is completely tied to your ability to keep your job and put food on the table. So there I was, unemployed now and heartbroken, and I decided to spend the next chapter of my life solving that problem, this problem that we're talking about. I wanted to help entrepreneurs find the capital somehow, some way. I didn't know what it would look like. And about a week into my problem-solving mission, I went to an event to hear President Clinton speak. And he's talking about jobs and the economy, and it's getting really exciting, and he's building up what he's talking about. And here's what he said, what brought me here today. He said, there's 2.5, and I am not going to do a Bill Clinton impression, even though a lot of people wanted me to. I refuse. You don't want me to. President Clinton doesn't want me to. But here's what he said. He said there's $2.5 trillion sitting in the venture funds of the biggest corporations in the world. And if someone could find a way to deploy more of that money, we could end unemployment. Now, when President Clinton speaks, we all know he's a great speaker, but when he speaks, everyone on the seat, everyone in the room is on the edge of their seat. I am fairly certain I was levitating out of my seat. I was so excited. But I'm embarrassed to tell you, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, what is this corporate venture of which you speak, Mr. President? Because this could be exactly what I'm looking for. So I rush home and I start researching corporate venture. It took some digging. It was hard. But I found out that he was right. There are many, hundreds of the biggest corporations that we all know that are funding entrepreneurs and fueling innovation. I spent 3 years on this, and I've seen hundreds of examples. Amazing stories where corporations are funding entrepreneurs and businesses that are all different sizes, all different sectors, stages of growth. And they're doing more than writing a check. This is the best part. They're actually sharing their resources and infrastructure. Johnson & Johnson provides state-of-the-art labs for entrepreneurs working on breakthroughs in healthcare. GE provides award-winning engineers. Procter & Gamble, the biggest CPG company in the world, shares their expertise on everything from packaging to logistics. These corporations have resources and infrastructure that VCs just don't. And they're not just buying businesses to acquire them. In most cases now, that's not even the case at all. Intel is making investments just so they can know what their chips need to do 20 years from now. But President Clinton was right. There's $2.5 trillion that's not being deployed. I actually think the number is higher. Could you imagine that? $2.5 trillion. That's a lot of money. And I'm working on it. I'm working on ways that we can work with these corporations to get more money deployed. But that brings us to the one thing you do every day. It's the first step that we can all do to get more of those checks written. Every single day, you make choices, brand choices. The car you drive, the coffee you drink, shampoo, pain reliever, gasoline, phone service. You're live tweeting our event today, I think, right? Are you using, what phone service? Nope, don't answer. But I hope you're using Verizon because Verizon is the only phone service that has corporate venture. I have the list of the 100+ brands that have corporate venture, and there's thousands that don't, at least not yet. I'm going to get to them someday. But the ones that do, I'm asking you to choose the brands that choose entrepreneurs. Buy the products, buy the brands, and let them know that you're buying their products as a celebration of what they do for all of us every day. Choose the brands that choose venture. And I'll bet you I know the corporations, when they see that their venturing directly impacts consumer spending, you bet they're going to write more checks, right? So choose the brands that choose venture. Choose Tylenol over generic. Ship UPS. Bank with Citigroup. Drive a Buick. sign up with Verizon, get stuck on Band-Aid, and for God's sake, share a Coke. Thank you.